I call this meeting to order at 5:31. I'm going to start us off with a roll call. Alejandro? Here. Eric? Here. Joey? Here. Edgar?
Here.
Monica?
Here.
Dane? Here. Alex?
Here.
Aubrey?
Here.
Josh is excused. Martin? Here. Lacey?
Here.
Kirti excused. Gray?
Here.
Jessica? And me here. Oh, and Tanya.
Here.
See. Okay. We're gonna go to agenda approval, so if everyone could look over today's agenda for December 4th. Dane?
Motion to approve.
Eric seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the agenda? Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. The agenda has been approved. Now we're going to look at the minutes from the last meeting, which was November 20th. Please look over it. Voice any concerns. Eric?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Dane seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving last meeting's minutes? Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. So moved. Last week's minutes are approved. We're going to move into reports. I don't have, I guess my reports would be, I'll just see you. Well, yes, I don't have any reports. Give it to the advisor.
There we go.
Sure.
So the first report is PBAC was able to recommend and approve the requests that were on the docket from last week or before Thanksgiving. So those have passed that level of approval. And the next piece that I wanted to make sure I noted is request 2018 that is on the docket to be voted on tonight. Had let me know, and they actually reduced their amount to $2,856 due to the item that they had discussed during their funding. They had a couple of pieces where they weren't sure what was going to get awarded from SEPs, and they got clarity on that. So they were awarded, and they reduced their amount from the S&A supplemental. And the next piece that I just wanted to make sure we noted, and Brandon knows as the chair, but we do have a presenter, so request 2021, that is scheduled to present at the Funds Council. That is scheduled tonight. So there should be plenty of time for them to go through, but I believe they are scheduled to present at 7. So I just want to make sure the committee was aware that they are double booked, and hopefully we aren't running into this issue, but we might be considerate or think about being considerate of the time if we get close to 7.
The other pieces I have is, one as a reminder, this is our last meeting of the quarter. We're not meeting next week. Our next meeting will be the 8th of January, so that first Wednesday when we get back for the quarter. We'll be back in Circuit 301 where we have a little more space to stretch out. Other pieces is just as heads up, we did send out to all the base funding areas that their annual reports, we did push the deadline due to some of the changes in access to the budget reports, and so those are already coming in. They'll still be due before you all will see them. We've given the deadline, if I remember correctly, the 20th of December. And so we're getting some of them already, and so those will be ready when you all come back in January. Again, our plan is those first few meetings will be kind of business pieces of going over the actual budget pieces that Lacey's going to be presenting, looking at, and then also those reviews. And we'll be starting the program reviews for that last third of all the base funding later on in January and setting that schedule out as well. Other than that, we do have some pieces that aren't in the report but will come up under communications received that we'll share later on. So.
With that, I'll move on to the first call for public comment. Is there any public comment? Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Francesco Zanini. I am the chair of the Department of Communication as well as the advisor to the Observer Weekly newspaper. I'm here with my colleagues and the student manager, my colleague from Pulse, Jennifer Green, and the student manager, Kate Dalton. were made aware yesterday of the recording of the November 20th meeting that you guys held. And we watched it multiple times trying to figure out what the discussion was, and we concluded a few things. And we decided to write a statement that we would like to put on the record of this committee, and that's what I'd like to do. Is that possible?
Yeah, if you want to do it there, I was going to be under communication or C, but if you want to do it now instead, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Sorry, I was running here from Barge, so I'm still panting. Okay. To the Student Services and Activities Committee, the advisor of CW's student media outlets and the student media business manager, whose names are titled and the title are below of these documents, would like to clarify the following five points based on serious misstatements and unsubstantiated accusations raised in the S&A meeting of November 20th and broadcast on YouTube. Point number 1, defamation statement. Committee member Alex Arrington called on the student media faculty advisors and the business manager to appear before the committee to propose a solution for a, quote, misuse of funds, end quote. He later backed down from that wording under questioning by fellow members, but the record shows he used this wording. We consider this a defamatory accusation of criminal activity by faculty and staff of the communication department and request a formal apology from Mr. Harrington for making this accusation. Point number 2, S&A-based funding for student media. Mr. Harrington suggested S&A-based funding to the various student media outlets is given to, quote, inform the student body of things that are occurring on campus, end quote. This is a misunderstanding of the base funding given the student media, which, as Lacey Lampkin alluded, is allocated principally to pay for goods and services, mostly printing expenses, a percentage of the wages of the student media business manager, and student wages. Point number 3, how student media works. Mr. Harrington also called on student media faculty advisors and the business manager to appear before the committee to answer for material published or broadcast in student media. These comments, as well as statements made by committee member Greg Schlanger questioning whether students are potentially being punished for, quote, something that a faculty member did, and, quote, represent a serious misunderstanding of the role and responsibilities of faculty advisors on student media. The content of student media is entirely decided and produced by students. Advisors and the business manager do not choose, report, write, produce, or censor content in The Observer, Central News Watch, Pulse Magazine, or Wildcat Films. Further, as Joseph Bryant clarified during the meeting, the committee should not be making decisions based on content published or broadcast in student media. The resolution put forward by Mr. Harrington does exactly that. As Mr. Bryant noted, this could be viewed as censorship of student media. We trust that members of the committee do not intend to endanger the First Amendment rights of any CW students, including student journalists, even if what the journalists publish is not to their liking. Point number 4, factuality of student reporting. Mr. Harrington called information in the Observer stories false and accused student reporters of knowingly publishing false information. He described their work as, quote, a pretty deliberate and malicious attempt at misrepresenting the actions and statements of individuals in the campus community, end quote, and tied this directly to his proposal to defund student media. Pressed later to substantiate these serious accusations, he offered only anecdotal descriptions of what he had heard or been told without providing any actual evidence. We would direct the committee to the original Observer articles available online, which provide thorough documentation for all interactions with people cited in the stories. We would like to inform the committee that not a single person cited in the Observer stories has come forward to request the publication of a clarification or a retraction of published information. Point number 5, student journalists are students too. We would also like to remind the committee that the staffs of the Observer, Central News Watch, Pulse Magazine, and Wildcat Films are students who pay tuition and fees. Mr. Harrington's proposal that student media be defunded is an indication that the media are not viewed as a valuable commodity. Student media provide a fundamental service to the campus community and beyond. They represent student voices. Those voices change every quarter, just as the staffs of all the student media outlets change every quarter. but the value of the institutions which have themselves received national recognition and awards remain. Mr. Harrington himself said in a press release dated June 11, 2019 that he was, quote, very passionate about higher education and the ideas of free expression and having a diversity of ideas, end quote. We share his passion. We also share committee member Eric Bennett's concerns that Mr. Harrington's resolution carries an implication of retaliation for content published in the Observer and broadcast on Newswatch, Central Newswatch. As advisors, mentors, and educators, we are concerned about any implied threats to the First Amendment rights of our students. Sincerely, myself, Maria Sanders, Director of the Film Program and Faculty Advisor of Wildcat Films, Terry Reddow, Senior Lecturer of Digital Journalism and Faculty Advisor of Central Newswatch, Jennifer Green, Senior Lecturer of Digital Journalism and Faculty Advisor of Pulse Magazine, and Kate Dalto, Student Media Business Manager. Thank you for your attention. And time.
Is there any other public comment this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business. Supplemental funding request voting, request 2013 Wildfest 2020 for camps activities for $24,000. I'll open the floor to discussion. Okay.
Well, I went to Wildfest last year. I think last year was my first year. And it had a lot of activities that looked like a lot of fun. I think I got a neck tattoo actually, which is cool. Yeah, it was pretty sweet. It's like a feather or something. Anyways, based on the presentation, I have some notes here that, based on student input, this is one thing that students really enjoy, especially at the end of the year, a lot of students and whatnot. It's a good social event where a lot of students are welcome. All students are welcome for that matter. Last year they had over 2,000 students in attendance throughout the day. Pretty fair amount, I would say. And I think the reason that they're requesting more this year, I think the presenter said that to provide even more entertainment and higher quality of entertainment, and that should attract even more students. And I think that's what this committee is about, is providing, in this case, entertainment and for students. So I think this is a great thing that they're doing.
Yeah, and I think to tag on to that it kind of provides entertainment. I think this also just increases the accessibility that we offer on campus as a whole. They asked for this budget increase so they can keep the event free to students, which I think is incredibly important. Eric?
The realization of the 2,000 people that they had last year, if we increased this, if we gave them this increase, we would basically be providing $12 more to each student if they were to just, if it was to just stay at 2,000 students this year also. So I would like to make a motion to approve the full amount of $24,000 for the Wildcat 2020 campus activities.
Edgar, you second? Okay. Motion's on the table. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor, fully funding it? Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. So moved to approve request 2013 for the full amount. We will move on to funding request 2016, which is Society of Physics Students National Conference. They requested 3,000.
Let's change the.
It was $3,155.41.
Okay, so for a request of $3,155.41. I open the floor to discussion. Eric?
I'm a humanities student, as a history major and also a graduate student in the history department. And I find it very important for the balance of the university that we are sending out humanities students to events, but also science students. And I would like to make a motion to approve this for the 2016 Society of Physics Students National Conference for $3,156.
Motion on the floor. Dane seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion to fully fund this request? Seeing none. All those in favor? 5 opposed. 2 opposed, abstentions, 1 abstention. So moved to fully fund request 2016. Moving on to funding request 2017, which is the Lion Rock Visiting Rider Series for $3,000. I'll open the floor to discussion. Eric?
I had a question, maybe others in the committee can answer. Do you remember if they, the presenters, said if they got support from the literature department? Okay, I think they see.
Oh, great.
Lion Rock does get funding from the college.
Oh, okay, okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Entertain if there's a motion. Eric?
Point of order. Do you want to say, I would like to entertain a motion for what have you? Or,
Are you just guessing if they're?
or it's just a discussion
I'm
of.
listening.
So I'm gonna make a motion that we approve this for $1,500. My reasoning is this is a campus-wide event that does benefit students, and I think possibly that departments could give more contribution to this, since this is a campus-wide event that they've been promoting for, many years, so.
There's a motion on the table. Edgar seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion to fund them $1,500?
Not to necessarily, but it is on the request when you look at it that the college, as Craig said, allocated $5,000. So it's on their initial request.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? 6 opposed, 1 abstentions. I have 3 abstentions. So moved to fund funding request 2017, $1,500. Moving on to funding request 2018, the Hawaii International Conference for, what is it, 2000? 2,856. I open the floor to discussion. Okay.
Well, coming from the education department, which I'm a part of, I guess, so I kind of have some bias, but I also have some insight with that. As Central's, as a university, its main, well, in my eyes, its main, motto is, being the most diverse university in the state. A big focus on diversity and what have you. And so in the ed department, there's also a big focus on that. In most of my ed classes, we have a section, or actually one class we cover basically everything in the subject of diverse education. Specifically, their projects that they're going to be presenting are about the bias in curriculum. I think if I can remember correctly. So I think that follows in line with what the university is trying to go forward with, and this is a good thing we should fund. It's just what we're all about as a university. And I also like the attempt and the success of getting other modes of funding. It's evident that they've gotten the funding from the Dean of Education, I believe. So, yeah, I would like to make a motion to approve the full amount of $28.56.
Eric seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion, on the full amount? Let's see. Alright. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? 2 abstentions, 1 abstention, so moved to fund the full amount, $2,856. Moving on to the next section on the agenda, new business, which is supplemental funding request presentations, starting with request 2019, which is Society of Photographic Education's National Conference.
Probably no way to do presenter notes or anything of that sort.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, Thad, Emily, come on up. How's it going, folks? My name is Marcus Tessino. I'm the assistant professor of photography here at Central. Here with me, I have 2 intermediate photography students. So if you guys want to introduce yourself.
My name is Thad Brewer.
I'm Emily Boyd.
All right, so today we are coming from Student Art Club to request travel funds to go to the National Conference for the Society of Photographic Education. Just really quickly, let's see, there you go. Who we are. All right, so SAC, the Student Art Club, is the main art club that is housed in the Department of Art and Design. Now, this is an academic club. Let's be. I just want to be clear about that. It's not students getting together to make artwork. They are coming together to critique work, to bring in artists for visiting lectures. Just yesterday, we met for an hour and a half to go over graduate school applications. So this is a professional club full of students in our department who wish to pursue careers further down the road in the arts. So what are we asking for? So this is the budget for 18 students and 2 faculty, undergrad and graduate students. Airfare, round trip, this is the Expedia estimate, $7,000. Lodging at the conference rate, which is $179 a night for 3 nights. And so given the amount of rooms that we'll need, $4,398.03 with taxes. Conference registration for those students, $1,890. Airport shuttle to and from SeaTac to Ellensburg, ground transportation at the conference, $2,140. So, what is SPE? The Society of Photographic Education is the largest photographic community in the world, housing with about 5,000 members. The conference attendance is usually between 4,000 to 6,000 photographers, artists, new media, video artists, all coming together to talk about these notions of representation that are part of this medium. Reasons to go for our students, why this is valuable. So this conference has a wide range of activities, the main one being lectures. The conference theme this year is 2020, thinking about notions of the future, how we can move forward in a productive manner in the arts, thinking about decolonizing the artist space, thinking about how we consider gender in 2020, thinking about how we use or misuse and utilize new technology, digital technology at our disposal. Those are just some of the themes that are embedded in many of the lectures of this conference. Our art department, I am the only photography professor, a singular voice. I try to show as much art as possible, but to actually be able to go to this conference to meet with, listen to artists from around the world who are showing at the Museum of Modern Art, the Whitney Museum in New York. It's an amazing once-in-a-lifetime experience. So these are just a couple of the keynote speakers. Zachary Drucker, a fantastic artist who deals with her identity of being a trans woman and performer, and Dr. Simmons, whose work is gut-wrenching, profound, as she deals with investigating the slave trade. So those are just a couple of the speakers, and there are many. Portfolio reviews. So this is another reason for our students to go. Students have one-on-one experiences where they sit down with industry professionals. So this could be the heads of graduate schools, this could be gallerists, this could be museum curators, where they sit down for 20-minute sessions and they have one-on-ones where they put out their work and get feedback. It's an absolutely incredible experience. I've brought students from when I taught at other universities before I came here. I've had 3 students get offered full rides to top-tier Research One institutions from these portfolio reviews. So it's a very valuable experience for these guys and a way for them to get outside opinions other than my own. Exhibition of student work. Students will also be able to exhibit their work down in Houston, expanding their CVs and their resumes, getting their work out there, having that professional experience as well. The networking opportunities, as I say, 5,000 photographers, so graduate schools, gallerists, opportunities to get their work outside of Ellensburg, outside of Washington, and national level. Again, the Student Art Club, the students who are members of that club are very much thinking about their careers and their trajectories outside of CWU once they get out of here. I think one of the most valuable experiences is a Friday night informal portfolio walkthrough that you see here, where students will put out their portfolios and all of these folks will come through and they'll be able to talk about their work. It's through these experiences that connections are made, and even just informal experiences. What you'll see often at these conferences are people just hanging out in the hotel, at the hotel bar, in the lobby from 9 a.m. until after midnight, talking about photography, talking about contemporary art. It also forms bonds with the students, with peers at other institutions and amongst themselves, and they can bring that camaraderie back to our department in Central. So one of the main reasons is exposure to art. I can talk about art on the screen and project it up onto the screen in the classroom, but part of an art education is actually experiencing art in person. Houston, surprisingly, maybe for some of you, is actually the fourth largest art market in the United States. It's a bustling hub for contemporary art. The MFA in Houston is world-renowned. The Menil collection is one of the most important private collections, and the Rothko Chapel is one of the most important pieces of art of the 20th century, all housed in Houston, and students will have the opportunity to see that. Additionally, at the same time that the conference is going on, it will coincide with PhotoFest, which is the largest photo biennial in the United States to showcase international work. So there will be a whole bunch of internationally renowned artists from around the world, and the galleries will be packed with folks and art for the students to see. I just wanted to share this one photography student who couldn't be here. One of the reasons that she wants to go. Growing up in a single-parent household was incredibly difficult. My mom and I often lived paycheck to paycheck. So even the fact that I'm attending college is a feat of its own. Before attending CWU, I hadn't experienced an actual gallery before. And this experience has opened my eyes to the professional art world, and in turn, it made me want to see more. This trip would be a huge step in my journey into the photography community, and I'll be able to expose myself to some of the wonderful other artists out there. We're adding significant concepts and processes into the art conversation. There's an inherent classism that is embedded in academia and in the arts, and going to conferences, even going to museums, is can be really difficult for our students, but it's a valuable experience nonetheless. So as far as other funding, I've talked with Catherine Reed and Foundations. I would like to find a donor so that this can be a regular thing, that I don't have to come. We don't have to come back to S&A all the time to ask for money. And the SAC is applying to Club Senate. The graduate students who are attending are applying for grad travel grants as well. And I also want to be clear about the graduate students as well. The Department of Art and Design has the only terminal degree on campus with our MFA in Studio Art. So the graduate students who are coming on this trip, this is also an experience for them to look for job opportunities. There actually might be interview opportunities for tenure track NTT jobs down the line for them. So this is also a valuable experience for the graduate students as well. And so they will be requesting, looking for graduate funds. And so I wanted to let these guys talk and talk about why you guys want to work.
Hi again, my name is Ted Brewer, and I am very happy to be what I would hope to call a part of the diverse culture here as a non-traditional student, 51 years old coming back, and it's really due to the way that the art and design department teaches that has brought me back to college. It's been a very incredible experience, and as an older person, I have gotten to travel. I have gotten to do a fair amount of things that I think a lot of my classmates haven't. I've never had any sort of an opportunity to be immersed in something that I feel so passionate about with fellow classmates. A few of the things that I'm very excited that the show would provide for me would be the exhibits fair that goes on there as an opportunity to essentially interface with industry professionals, artists, equipment companies, and learn everything about the latest and greatest trends in photography, the gear that's used, the methods that are used, materials, all of that. And not only to get exposed to it, but to talk to people that are using it, to learn the pros and cons in that way. One of the other things, as Marcus pointed out, is the chance to have a portfolio reviewed by many people. That's something that we just do not get enough exposure, through the exercises that we have. And as he pointed out, the theme is 2020 vision. And I think personally, as an artist, the opportunity to go and to learn the cutting edge of what photography is right now, part of the show is determining and trying to have a voice for how to incorporate these new modalities that need to be a part of photography, and how it can present a voice with all of these very critical issues that we have in society. That for us as individual artists, hoping to represent Central down the road once we've graduated, to understand how to represent diversity and things with the right kind of voice is an opportunity that I don't see we could ever be exposed to here in the Pacific Northwest.
Sweet. And with that, we're at time, so we'll move to the.
Sorry.
No, it's really good. I don't talk.
Yeah. And so we'll be moving to 10 minutes of questioning in the committee. Do we have any other questions? Edgar?
So, have you tried to get funding from your department, or has there been any efforts in fundraising or anything like that?
Greg's my boss, so I ask him for money all the time. And the department, unfortunately, we would not have the money to fund those students. And we have strategies in place through art sales. We're actually having an art sale right now, the Student Art Club, to raise money. But the funds that would be raised would be nominal compared to the interest of the amount of students who want to go at the current moment. Now again, we're looking at going to the Senate, and we have a member of SAC is actually one of the representatives, and so she is working on a proposal. Again, the graduate students are applying separately for graduate travel grants. So there are other balls in the air for looking for funding and for money.
Jess?
Do you know the exact amount of those?
The funds that I'm requesting, so I didn't put the total on there, did I? It's like, it's 15,000.
I think she meant from those other.
15,
funding.
Oh, from the other
Yeah,
funding
yeah.
requests. So the grads will hopefully be fully funded through their travel and expenses, and they'll be able to share a room. And I believe that through the Club Senate, you're going to be asking for the allotted maximum amount, which is 2,000, I believe. Yeah.
Steve, Eric?
So when the club goes to this event and they come back here to Central, how will they take what they've learned and share it with other students here at Central, whether it be students in the art department, humanities, the sciences, what have you, you know, and get this information out. So since our goal here is to, as representatives and guardians of the students, wanting to make sure that it's spreading as far as it can go, the information that's brought back.
No, absolutely. And, it's a great question, and one of the things about Randall Hall, and the art department is sometimes we can be insular, and I think by creating these professional experiences, it will allow these students the opportunities and understanding to start to grow outwards. It'll give them knowledge that they can bring back to the classroom, to the critique space, to help their students, to help their fellow students grow, their fellow peers grow. There are other opportunities as well, as far as the relationships that they build and the relationships that we forge through the conversations there, of bringing other artists that we meet at SPE here for lectures. Having actual collaborations where so WSU and UW both attend SPE, right? And so actually meeting with them at SPE and then having an actual exchange where WSU students come to campus and we have an exchange of sorts. So there's, I think, plenty of opportunities that I can foresee coming from this. But it's really creating a professional atmosphere and starting to integrate that into the photographic curriculum and the curriculum in the Department of Art and Design through these conferences. And it's something that I would like to be a regular occurrence, because it is contagious, let's say. The amount of students who then start thinking about graduate schools multiplies. The amount of students who take their studies more seriously multiplies. It creates an atmosphere of excellence in our department.
We got 2 more minutes for questioning. Alejandro?
The 15,000 being requested, is that assuming that the grad students and all the other funding requests are approved, or will the amount spent actually be less than that?
So this is right now assuming that the grads will get their funding, and from my understanding, I feel fairly good about that. And the additional requests that we would get would be additional to the money that we're asking for per diems, for meals, and other expenses that were not mentioned here. When I was writing the application with Christian at SAC, I was not aware that we could actually add per diems, for instance, for meals as part of the list of expenses. So that's what the Club Senate money would go for, or go towards, rather.
We got 1 minute, Greg.
All right, just to respond to Edgar, you asked a question, we kind of joked, but every department in College of Arts and Humanities, our budget is a mere keep the lights on. We used to have discretionary funds, and it's gone. There's no.
For point of order, that could be a part of the discussion piece.
Okay.
Because this is questioning them, which we have 1 minute, so we
Okay.
still have 30 seconds. How were the 18 students selected to go to this?
So right now it is a list of students who have expressed interest, and it's a tentative list based off of the amount of funding, right? So this list could dwindle if we do not get the full funding, if students have to put forward a little bit more money. And again, I want to try to make this as accessible as possible for everyone in the department who has an interest in going. So.
Now we're at time. Thank you. We'll be voting on it later this evening.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I want to make sure that attending next You're still going to be here later.
Cool. Now we're going to move on to Fund Request 2020, which is IEEE, the Rising Star Conference, for $10,000. You have 10 minutes to present.
Good evening, my name is Jeff Sargent. I am the treasurer of CWU's IEEE chapter. And we are requesting funding to go to IEEE Rising Stars 2020 this January on the 3rd through the 5th down in Las Vegas. The $10,046 total requested, that's across everywhere. We have amended our budget to be $7,800 from S&A based on the fluctuation of flights and hotel rates. What is IEEE Rising Stars? Conference for students and young professionals. It's held at the Tropicana Resort Hotel, Las Vegas, Nevada. We will be there the 2nd through the 5th, and we have 11 students going. Why do we want to go? There's a large variety of speakers that are there that talk about technical and professional topics. So there's topics on building resumes and interviewing, and then there's more technical ones talking about things we may not have heard of before, but might be interested in working in that field. Participants of this conference will have the opportunity to network with other students and young professionals. So people who just graduated and are just started their career, be able to figure out where we want to move on after we're done here at college. This is the list of some of the people that were sponsoring the event last year. Some of the big ones, AMD and Sinovation. They do a lot of stuff with city planning, and so a little bit of personal experience. I went to Rising Stars last year, and there's businesses there that are looking for internships, or just looking for people to hire. And even though I wasn't pursuing an internship because I was just in my sophomore year, I've had a couple more years left. I met with some people higher up in the IEEE organization, and they said they were looking for people to serve on their humanitarian activities committee. And what they do is they, just like this council right here, they look at funding requests and approve them. I was on the events section, so I would read a report for a request in Brazil. They want to do a camp for kids, teaching them to play with teaching them basic coding and working with electronics. I've also reviewed stuff in India and here in the United States as well. And just having that opportunity by going to Rising Stars, it was just really great. It helped me kind of know the organization as a whole, because it is an international organization. We're in almost every country. There's 400,000 members globally, and their motto is the world's largest technical organization dedicated to the advancement of technology for humanity, and that's just a big thing, is humanitarian efforts. This is our budget right now. I updated these prices yesterday, and checking again this morning, prices were pretty close to this. So flights from Seattle to Las Vegas, totaling $4,263. Other travel, shuttle, using a CWU motor pool van, and parking comes to about $412.50. Registration for the event is $395 a person, so that comes to $4,345. Hotel rates comes to $1,263.21, and then we will be there on the Thursday before the event starts because it starts at 8 a.m. So we'll be getting in around lunchtime, dinner time, depending on what flight we get. And so we put in a budget for non-conference provided meals of $50 per person. And so our total budget is $10,834.64. This is our funding sources. We've requested $546 from an organization through IEEE called PACE, which stands for the Professional Activities Committee for Engineers. They will only provide partial funding for 2 students, so that's why that number is that. We currently have about $200 from club fundraisers that we've done. We print out 3D models for people and kind of do a little bit of a better rate than down in Samuelson. I'm trying to remember what they do. Yeah, through Cat Tech. We've requested $1,000 from SAS and Club Council each. We are gonna request our $500 from Career Services for transportation. And then the total requested for today from S&A is $7,800. In conclusion, the IEEE Rising Stars event will allow our club to connect what we learn in the university environment to what the industry standards are. It will provide us with invaluable career knowledge. Any questions?
Moving on to the 10 minutes of questions. Alejandro.
I didn't catch what IEEE stands for.
The Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers.
Thank you, Gustavo.
Yeah, sorry. So I see that, for the question, how will funding this request benefit the students of CU? And, obviously it's gonna benefit, those in IEEE. But how is it gonna benefit those, in, I don't know, computer science?
Computer science. There's a coding competition that goes on during this event. There's a separate coding competition that goes on, and through learning about these events, we can reach out to more clubs and actually have more information for them. We've talked to some people at like Robotics Club, ASME about going, and although kind of this year was a little hectic and just every year we passed along new officers, like all the officers last year graduated. And so it was really hard to figure out, there was no communication on how to get all this funding. So a lot of those connections kind of fell through because we didn't have answers for them. But as we keep going, would be our 3rd year of sending students. We can be able to know what is there that we can then reach out to other clubs and departments and be like, hey, this might be something your students might want to attend.
How do you choose the 11 students?
We had a sign up of, I think, about 13 of our students. And we gave that list to our faculty advisor, and depending on club participation and grades and whatnot, he picked the 11 from there.
Okay.
How many students are in your club?
We have, on a good day, we have about 20 students show up to a club event.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thanks, we'll be voting on it later tonight.
Thank you.
Alright, moving on to fund request 2021, which is the Western 247, yes, to the Western Psychological Association Conference.
Different than the ones.
I had everything.
Oh,
That's okay.
gotcha. Then yes, she's the other one.
This one?
Yeah, I'll have to drive for it.
Yeah, just tell her where to go. Yeah. You can right.
Site Club 2019. This one?
Bottom
Bottom folder. Yep. And then up the third one from the bottom. This one? Yes.
Whenever you're ready, that's 10 minutes to present.
Awesome, thank you. So, hello you guys, I'm Larissa, I am the Psychology Club President.
And hello everyone, my name is Andrea and I'm going to be the Senator for the Psychology Club.
And we are presenting on the Western Psychological Association Convention, which we are requesting funds for today.
Alright, so who are the relevant parties attending? That is going to be us, the CWU Psychology Club, and also Psychi members. So this is going to be the recognized chapter on campus for the International Honor Society in Psychology. One-time sensitive date we have up here is March 31st, the end of the early bird registration, and the total requesting amount today to designate is $6,720.
I would like to amend the amount that we were originally requesting for $15,400 down to $6,720 So what is WPA? Let's go ahead and start there. WPA is essentially, it's the Western Psychological Association Convention or conference that brings students and faculty and other psychological professionals within the field all together from all the western regions of the United States to just come and share their research with each other. The locations vary every single year. It's somewhere in the western part of the United States. This year it's going to be in San Francisco. It is also their 100th anniversary, so they're planning some big things this year.
Okay, so who will be attending? Students presenting at the convention and students interested in becoming knowledgeable about their topic of interest. And the funds will be allocated for registration, airfare, ground transportation, and part of the lodging costs. The conference is located at the Hyatt Regency in San Francisco, California, and we anticipate to be here from April 30th through May 3rd, but potentially leaving Ellensburg the day before on April 29th.
So we have some requirements for members in order to attend, and we can come back to this and read it in more depth, but for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and just say that all of these requirements are going to be outlined in the Memorandum of Understanding that we're working with student involvement to develop right now, and that will address repercussions for failure to address these requirements or the exceeding amount of people who will potentially meet these requirements. There are, as you can see, a lot of benefits for these students that will be attending WPA. There will be tons of different distinguished speakers coming to this program. Dr. Philip Zimbardo, he was in charge of the Stanford Prisoner Experiment, if you guys are familiar with that at all. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus, who does a lot of her research in areas related to psych law, so anything related to
Oh, for which one?
Dr. Elizabeth Loftus.
She had to do with psychology of eyewitness testimonies, so seeing the validity of can people actually recall events that happen in legal cases.
And as you can see, there are tons of other academic opportunities for students here, such as networking with grad programs, other professional universities, and other professional organizations such as SciPi. We will be presenting research, and then students get to watch other students present research. So there's a lot of academic opportunities to hone in presentation skills, and just attending and kind of absorbing a lot of knowledge on different topics.
Alright, so moving on to the justification summary. This aligns with appropriate club activities that can be funded, so travel, registration, and lodging. And because this hotel is more than 50 miles away from the university, hotel receipts will include separate item charges to ensure funding is utilized appropriately and complies with university and state guidelines. And the Psychology Club is an academic club, and the conference aligns also with the expectations for striving for intellectually stimulating experiences. And it also aligns with some of the core values of CWU by giving students the opportunity to discover novel research and teach other CWU students upon returning about what they have learned from their experience. And I would like to make special note that based on previous club attendees, we do have a 100% retention rate. Attending students are also doing other students and professors an academic service by bringing this information back to CWU in an accessible manner. What we usually like to do is set aside a room at a time of day when we get back up at the psychology building and get everyone together that's interested and have all the attending members present a slide on what they've learned, what they thought was personally engaging to them. And these presentations are also designed to be engaging and also designed to be inclusive. You'll see a lot of undergrad, graduate, faculty research from people with different backgrounds. And I also want to reiterate, this is novel research. This is research that hasn't really been published to the general public yet. So we're going to be the first people seeing these types of research. Let me get back to you guys.
And as Andrea mentioned, this is research that we'll be bringing back right after the conference happens. So there are requirements for people to do after we're done and after the funding has been said and done. And because of that, we also invite the people who do fund us to this presentation, and they are more than welcome to attend. This just kind of reiterates what we just mentioned about bringing the presentation back. So getting back to the expenses, I know you guys are all curious about.
All right, so yes, total expenses. So all the items on this list are going to be all the good things you might find, as a conference registration, the flights from Ellensburg to Seattle to San Francisco, and then the ground transport from Ellensburg to the airport. And then I'd like to make special note of the second to last item on the list here. That is going to be food at a per diem rate for 12 students for 5 days. And also all the other items on this list are calculated for 12 students. And that is, we're personally contributing this $4,560 that is coming out of the members' pockets. That's what we want to contribute. And then the grand total over here is going to be $15,300. Okay, so for our anticipated funding sources, what we expect to make in terms of funding and revenue. So deposits from the attending members, 12 of them, it's going to be $600. Fundraising, it's going to be $1,000. This quarter, we are not requesting anything from SAS, but we did request $2,000 from Funds Council. ASCWU club funds, that really just stands for our funds from the club, so Psych Club. We're going to be taking $500 out of our own accounts, and again, reading the price or the amount of money we want to request from you guys. That's $6,720, bringing us to a total anticipated revenue of $10,820.
And this is just a further visual breakdown of the expenses and the anticipated funding. So as you can see, a lot of the expenses are being covered by the students themselves that are actually attending the trip, largely the meals per diem. And a lot of this will actually be, as you can notice from the funding, a lot of this will also be covered through students' personal funds and or the club personal funds, either through fundraising or through funds that we already have. We just need the extra coverage from other organizations that are willing to receive funding from us.
So yeah, so here is ways that we have maximized savings. Again, early bird registration saves $50 per individual, so that's like $600 collectively. There is parking on CTAC, but we chose to park a little bit off-site, and that actually saves us $249. The Omni San Fran Hotel saves an estimated of $1,000. So when we were looking at hotels, they were about $1,000 over what we found, so we're saving $1,000. Again, it's the cheapest out of 10 that we reviewed. We also made sure the book rooms had any of those extra amenities to cut back on cost. And it is the best hotel based on cost and distance from the conference location, as in because it is close enough walking distance, we don't have to do any of Uber calculations.
And that's all we have for you guys. Are there any questions?
Move on to 10 minutes of questions. Joe?
And I apologize if you said this, you said some of the members attending are going to be presenting research. How many are presenting?
We don't have a head count right now because WPA hasn't released exception or rejection letters yet for our presentation, but I know myself, the vice president of the club, we both applied. I know of one other person in the club that's applied, so a minimum of 3 of us will be presenting research there. We'll know that for certain until the WPA releases the exception, so.
Any more questions? We can answer them.
Yes.
I guess kind of what I'm saying, how many of you had in years past presented?
I presented for the last, how many times did I go?
Many times, at least 4.
At least 3, but I think I presented 4 times now at WPA. So.
Okay, so another question, how many of the people that are presented have gone before?
I have, this will be my 3rd WPA. I joined psychology club as a freshman. I'm now a junior. So
I can think of 5 off the top of my head right now.
at least 5 of us. All right, yes.
Yeah,
For the 12 members that were chosen to go based off of the requirements, were those the only ones that met the requirements, or were there other factors?
So we'll go back to that. So these requirements, we've laid these requirements out for members at the very beginning of the year. The members that are interested in going have the entire academic year to meet these requirements. So this is an ongoing list for students. We also have flexibility. What we're writing in the memorandum of understanding right now, what we are intending on doing is making some flexible choices for some of these, especially the attendance of club meetings. So in the case that maybe a member joins winter quarter and they just physically can't attend the 9 club meetings that are required, we're willing to substitute that with extra volunteer hours. So for every 1 club meeting that they miss, that can be substituted with an extra volunteer hour instead. But that's in the works right now in the memorandum of understanding. Right now, attending or interested members, are in the process of working on these requirements.
And we want to make sure that, like we were saying, even if there are some things on here that members can't do, we want to make sure we're accommodating them if they're still showing the effort and they still want to go. So that's why we have, or are planning to have weighted things and alternative ways that we can really get people on the trip if they really want to.
Joe?
How many members are in the club?
Active members. I wish David was here, she's a secretary. I believe, well, we have 272 on our Facebook page, but I believe on our email list, which is active members, I believe that's around 160,
Yeah, around
67. So somewhere around there. It's just under 200 people, I believe.
Any more?
Great.
Yeah, so part of the requirements is paying at least the registration, and I think that also the students are picking up some of the costs as you've lowered it. So what about students that financially are burdened and aren't able to go?
That's a good question. That's something that we are also hoping to address in the memorandum of understanding. That's something that we're going to be working with student involvement to address. So potentially thinking of instances where we may require financial aid or some very exceptional circumstances. That's something that we're in the works of.
Because we usually want large financial reasons to get in the way of people getting to go to this convention and learning what they want to learn. So yes, financial drainers is one of the things to those who just said we want to implement that to the best of our abilities while working with student involvement. Any more questions?
It says you have $2,131 in your club account. Is that true?
That has since changed, probably since you guys have received that. There was a misunderstanding in some of the encumbered funds, so kind of like a real quick rundown of, we have encumbered funds for the club, but that's for psychi, like the club can't actually touch that funding for specifically the psychology club. But in the past, there was an error for some of those encumbered funds. They never got released back to the club funding. And they were supposed to go back to the club, but they never were, so that has since been amended. So we now have an extra, I believe, $1,600 in our account on top of that $2,000 originally. So around $4,900, I believe, was the last balance that I had checked.
Is there a reason why the club is only contributing $500 from the town?
That was kind of our estimate. We're willing to contribute more, but we also want to leave a healthy carryover rate for the next year's club. And that's kind of going to be a determined rate based on how much we can fundraise this year. So that number is subject to change.
And also kind of speaking a little bit more on that, Psychi again is the International Honor Society for Psychology. We have a chapter here on campus, and Psychology Club kind of serves as like an extension of that, since we do not have a separate body or Psychi club at this current moment. Any more questions? Even couple. Good questions.
Seeing none, we'll be voting on it later tonight.
All right. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Third time's a charm.
Oh, goodness.
Just pull it.
I can stand it.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
So we will be moving on to the final request of tonight, which is funding request of 2022, which is the Model United Nations Conference.
Are they out there?
Appreciate it, yeah.
Thanks, Greg. I don't know. Maybe. Thank you. I'd use it that way. The clicker's right there.
Never actually used one of those presentations.
Wow.
So whenever you're ready, you got 10 minutes to present.
Perfect. So, I just want to start off by saying my name is Trenton Gardner, Ben Tompkins, and Daniel Saunders. We're presenting for Central Washington's Model United Nations. Many of you guys don't know, but we are pretty much a brand new club. We just started a couple weeks ago. Actually got the ball rolling for the financial aspect of the club a little late. So I want to say the amount that you guys have listed for us is about 15, and that is not what we're requesting. We're requesting 11,500. We threw those budgets together, I want to say in one day, so we were just trying to get kind of gist of what the actual numbers were. So for this presentation, we're kind of looking forward to having that money retranslated to flight tickets, which we would want to have that taken care of by January 10th. We also have delegate dues for the conference, which is also due January 10th. And then club t-shirts, we just wanted to get that kind of done as soon as possible because we'll be wearing the t-shirts at the conference. So on to the next slide. So Model United Nations is an educational simulation and or academic activity in which students can learn about diplomacy, international relations, and learn a little bit more about the United Nations. It also provides an opportunity for students to simulate an environment where they can discuss and analyze international affairs through quality educational experiences that emphasize collaboration and cooperative resolution of conflict. We envision for the club to create a campus comprised of civically engaged students that strive for peaceful, multilateral conflict resolution and equitable, sustainable human development. And the sustainable human development is kind of an important factor because the conference topic goes over sustainable human development and economic development. So that's one of the biggest research focuses that we will be taking care of.
So again, as my partner said, we are here today seeking funds for travel costs and other fees and things like that that are going to be incurred in our quest, I guess you could say, to go to the conference in April. So the funding will be directed towards current members of Model UN Nations Club. A consideration I guess we want to make here is that there are two different, I guess, teams on Model UN. So we have the travel team that will actually be heading to the conferences and things like that. And then we have the standard body. So this funding specifically will be going towards the travel team. And again, for flights, delegate dues, travel expenses, lodging, all that. The arranged date for the Model United Nations Conference, again, as mentioned, April 17th to April 21st. And we plan to depart from Ellensburg on the 16th. Travel plans, as intended, are we're going to meet at the airport in our own vehicles, do our own thing. And then subsequently we'll get on the plane, head there, and then upon arrival in California, the hotel is right next to the airport, so we don't have to worry about that.
All right, so the reason is because, well, basically, it's a brand new club. We haven't done this since the early 90s. And the people that we have right now are very passionate about doing this club. So we really is like seeking to do this. This club will bring great diversity. Also, the students, the 15 students that's traveling, has already contributed $20 to verify, the loyalty to the club, and and basically this conference will be great for public speaking. It will be great for networking, even connecting with other schools that's there in California, because this is a national competition, and I feel like other universities have have the UN Model Club, so why not Central Washington University and have a group that is very, very ready to go to do this and very knowledgeable in these international relations field.
And that's actually one, I would like to touch on that diversity point is an important part of this, because as I think all of us know, one of Central's guiding principles in recent years has been increasing our diversity on this campus. And that's actually what we're trying to do with this club. I mean, I can't think of anything more diverse than the UN. I mean, it's quite literally the United Nations of the world. I mean, you can't get more diverse than that. And so our intent with this conference, really, I mean, you got to think, I mean, a bunch of students that are, from Washington State going down to a conference meeting. I mean, we were looking on their website, they have over like 196 different countries that go to this thing. I mean, a ton of people go to this from all over the world. I mean, from our small little corner here in Washington, I mean, we could seriously be exposed to some enormous chances here, so. And another thing we want to talk about here is the budget is important to us because without this funding, there's a good chance we won't be able to go. I mean, you got to think, it's in terms of a basketball team, okay? Now, when you go to a conference or something like that, or a game with your basketball team, you're not going to take half the team. You're going to take everybody, and that's kind of what we're seeking with this, because if we don't get our funding, we're not going to be able to take everybody. So, again, as Daniel mentioned earlier, students at the conference will be provided with a chance to conduct research and network, one of the paramount parts of this entire thing we're trying to go about. And again, then the diversity as well. The important thing we kind of want to
So right here, I do see that you guys have our initial expense breakdown right in front of you guys. Like I said in the beginning, that breakdown has definitely been reconstructed. So I'm going to help you guys go over right here. And in the prices, I have the breakdown of kind of where I got those numbers from. So in the flights, it's about, I looked it up, and it's about $163 per person for a flight. So that comes out to about $2,445. But that's just the price for right now. We won't be getting those until next month or the month after. So we definitely plan for a little bit of a price jump in the flights. Then we move on to delegate dues. So for the conference, each delegate must pay $100 to reserve their spot in the conference. So that's where we get the 100 times 15, putting us at 1,500. Food is a very important aspect, obviously. We have it about $15 per meal, so taking 15 times that by 3 meals per day, making sure that we truly have that nutrition that we need to be able to be at our peak for the competition. We times that out by 6 days, looking at about $45 per person per day for food. Then we look at travel expenses. That's one of our biggest issues because we've been trying to look at taxi services, the train down there, and many other aspects, and we've come to the conclusion that Ubering around San Fran might be the best way to get around. So we looked at about $600 for the full time that we're down there in San Fran to be able to get around from the hotel to the conference and be able to go get some food every now and then. Moving on to lodging. The lodging, as stated in the beginning, is right across from the airport. For 15 students, we did about 2 students per room, looking at about 7 to 8 rooms with hotel fees is where we got our $2,000. We will be staying at the Hyatt Hotel, and we have more information on that hotel later in the slides. The t-shirts, I personally think that it's kind of important because during the conference, the last day is a day where you get to represent your school. Every school will be in a shirt that represents their school. So if Central is not being represented, how do we put ourselves on the map nationally? I did go through shirtworks.com, so local Ellensburg shop brings some money back into Ellensburg, and they priced it out about $250 for the 15 members that will be on the travel team going to the conference. Then a little breakdown, like I said, the total cost that we would be requesting is $11,500, and we did get $900 from Club Senate that allowed us to pay for our registration and I forgot what else it was. Our registration and the tablecloth.
So here we have the hotel information at the Hyatt. It's pretty much right in the vicinity of the airport. Also, once again, the other other type of sources and then like type of things that we want to fund with the money is, fundraising. We already had the club fees, and then we're also working on sponsorships or maybe hosting some events. Maybe it's managed at Central Washington Center or Sundalia, and just try to host something where the public can can view us in motion and also give us a little bit of practice as well.
Okay, now we're at time. Ready to go to 10 minutes of questions. Do you have any questions for me? Eric?
Does this event move around or is it always in San Francisco?
It does move around. This year is in San Francisco.
And the Model UN group, they'll host 3 conferences every year. Last year they had one in New York, I can't remember the other one, and the other one was China.
It was New York, China, and honestly Japan. And honestly, that's our end goal. If we do good in San Francisco, we get to go to Japan. That's way down the line. We're not even getting to that. That's the end goal.
And we're going to focus on getting off the ground.
Exactly. Any other questions?
What are our t-shirts advertising?
So, t-shirts, if they were to be approved, they would be owned by the university.
Okay.
So they would need to be basically turned back in.
Not a problem. And that's another good thing for it anyways. It will be able to be used for the coming years with the club and stuff like that. That was another thing that I wanted to touch on in the last slide was sponsorships. That's another big funding source that we've been looking into because it allows the club to have that consecutive income from outside the university, and it does draw business outside of the university and keeps it in Ellensburg. So that's definitely been another big process that we've been looking into.
Great.
Or is the club affiliated with any academic department?
Like it's kind of actually no, it's affiliated with the political science department. Correct.
But he, pretty much anybody can just come in and go.
It's open to anybody.
Yeah, and as we said, I mean, one of our biggest problems is that we are rather new on campus, so we're still kind of feeling our way out around things. It's quite a labyrinthine maze of stuff.
And the best thing about it is open to everybody because the UN, it's not just something that touches on just politics, but there's financial aspects in it. There's many different aspects in it, social aspects, economic aspects. So opening it up to everybody allows to get that true diversity, not only in ethnicity, but also in knowledge.
Any other questions from the committee?
Go back to the selling wall costs. Okay, so for lodging, so it's going to be 7 to 8 rooms. And
sir.
How many students are you taking?
15.
15. So this is going to be 2 per room.
Correct.
Would it be possible to like, I mean, I don't know if the rooms look like, but maybe potentially like share guys and like cut costs there?
Well, I mean, that's certainly something we could explore. I mean, a cost-cutting measure, sure, but that would be something that we definitely need to discuss with the group because, I mean, that definitely falls into, comfort of the individual students and how they want to go about that. So we'd have to address that, obviously, in the meeting, but we're definitely open to cost-cutting measures.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on just a sec.
Perfect. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Not that I came from a voting member, but I would entertain a motion before we move into voting tonight to take a brief 5-minute recess. And then jump in.
Very
I make that motion.
I don't know.
Monica seconds. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none. So moved. We'll take a 5-minute recess and come back at 7 o'clock. Reconvene this meeting. Everyone, with that, I know. Okay. All right, we're going to be continuing with new business, subsection B, which is the supplemental funding request voting. We'll start with funding request 2019, which is the Society of Photographic Education National Conference, just in the Student Art Club.
No, there's just.
That was good.
Okay, for the same amount of $15,428. I open the floor to discussion. Eric?
I didn't ask you this question, but maybe Greg could answer. Is this the same, not the same group, but was this the club that went to San Francisco last spring to visit the art museums and stuff down there?
The Student Art Club. It's the same club as.
Club, yeah, not the same students. Okay, we're just curious.
Joey?
Well, and on that note, because that was just for, I think, an art trip. This is for the actual.
Oh, yeah, no. I was
conference.
just curious.
Yeah.
They sent pictures when they back to us, remember?
Yeah. The one thing I would point out, just for you all, I know we've discussed this, so it's still for you, but I want to point out because it didn't really get discussed, is in looking at their budget breakdown on there, that the numbers include, because it's by 20, which is the 18 students and the 2 faculty who are on there. So just be mindful of that.
Eric?
And just to clarify, we can pay for faculty to go to this.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Any further question or discussion? Eric?
This is mostly just a comment, but I wish departments were funded better. And I would like to make a motion to approve this in the full amount of $15,428.
We have a motion on the table. Is there a second? Tanya seconds. Is there discussion on the motion? fund them the full amount? Seeing none, all those in favor, fund the full amount? All those opposed? Abstentions? Abstentions?
I think it was fine. You may wanna,
Yeah, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay.
so it's 5.
So passes, so. Alright, the motion passes, funding the full amount. Moving on to Fund Request 2020, which is the Rising Star Conference for IEEE, which is $7,800. I open the floor to discussion.
Can I propose the full amount?
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Alright, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Eric seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion to fund the full amount?
This one is, this one, 78?
Yeah.
78?
Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? None, so moved. Fund funding request 2020, the full amount, $7,800. Moving on to funding request 2021, who requested an amount of $6,720. Eric?
I would like to say that I'm quite impressed with their presentation, that they were cognizant of costs and how they allowed students to go to this event, that they're also contributing their own funds. They also do fundraising. I think it's important that we fund this trip, and I would like to make a motion for the full amount of $6,720.
Dane seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion? On the full amount? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? 2 abstentions, 1 so moved to fund the full amount of $6,720. Moving on to funding request 2022, the Model UN Club requesting $11,500. Eric.
The promotion of diversity and equity here at Central is very important. And we have a budding new club which is going to show that diversity that we have here on Central's campus. And I find it very important that we fund this. And it sounds like we used to go to this event back in the 90s, and I would like to see Central return again. So I would like to make a motion for the full amount, $11,500.
Motion, Dane, is that a second? Dane seconds. Is there discussion on the motion to fund the full amount? Dane?
I just think it's important, I just wanted to add on top of what Eric had to say. I think civically engaged people are at a low right now in society. I think this club would bring that amount up. So I think it's very vital that we do fund this.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, funding the full amount? Opposed? Abstentions? 2 abstentions, so moved. Funding the full amount, $11,500. Okay, with that, we are, just so we all know, our budget right now, we have $129,837 moving into winter quarter and spring quarter. Okay. We have approved so far $170,163. Recommended. Okay, so going on to new business subsection C, which is the subcommittee report. The big kind of point of business we're gonna hear is kind of bringing up the S&A financial report questionnaire that we talked about in the last meeting. We talked about some of the edits then. Does anyone have any further kind of like edits before I move to Joey, who has his suggestions? So I'll give you all time to look over the questionnaire again.
This is the edited version we have.
Should be.
I don't.
No, the one in the minutes is the original.
Yeah.
Minutes.
Addendum 1, correct?
Addendum 1 is the initial.
That's the initial.
No edits.
Wait a minute, I'm confused.
I was never given an updated one.
Oh, okay.
So I have some based on our conversation that are here, but this is also open if others have other edits, which I will just go through what was discussed to see. So you all have it under addendum 1 in there. One of the pieces I recommend is we just remove questions 1 and 2 because those are already submitted out to everyone on their annual reports right now anyway, so we're going to get those. There are a few just grammatical pieces that were updated on here. There's really only 4 points that I kind of had from ours. One, if you go down to what is currently question number 6, where we have how do you gauge the effectiveness of the service programs, is student input used, and then if your unit has an advisory committee and what capacity is involved in budgeting process, was more whether that was all part of one question or because the advisory committee and the budget process almost feels as a separate one. That could be more grammatical, but I don't know if people have a thought about that, if it needs to be a separate question. The bigger question is on number 7 about the second part of the question. So it asks, how do you ensure that student fees do not subsidize non-student uses? And then the second part is, if previous requests have included, and we changed our request to if previous funding, has included statistical analysis on this point, please provide similar analysis using this year's demographics. Was I think to get clarity, because I think there was still confusion on what that was asking. I talked with Brandon a little bit.
Yeah, and I think so. I'm just gonna give it to the committee on how we want to like tackle this question. As it is, it's kind of saying like, how do we ensure that it's not subsidizing non-students? But then we also have a question of kind of just like providing any statistical data if they have it. So it's almost like 2 different questions, and it's kind of like going to the committee as are we asking them, do we want them to provide kind of like the data if they have any, or are we just asking them what are their kind of like the procedures that they have in place on how do they ensure it whatsoever on not subsidizing non-student uses? Eric?
I think we definitely should ask about if they have statistical data. Thinking more about the first part of the question, I'm going to say, and this is just, I'm going to throw this out here, but I think the circuit accounting does a fabulous job of making sure that monies aren't, S&A funds are just supporting students. So I don't know that that's actually necessary to ask that. And the other part almost is a parentheses optional, because if you don't have statistical data that you've used, I mean, like if you have it, please give it to us. We'd love to know. But if not, thank you.
Yeah, and both answers are beneficial at this point, so it lets us know if they have any data whatsoever, and if they don't, then it lets us know what kind of like, I guess like indicators that we're going to create for them that they can maybe use moving forward.
And it is worded to suggest that you only want data from people who have had it in previously, and I don't think that's necessarily, like you are open to all of the data, I would assume. People want to provide it even if they hadn't previously, I would assume. So maybe just speaking out a little bit to not just if previous requests have included statistical analysis, but like if you can or when appropriate, please include data.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably more what we're asking too, is just give us what they have right now so we can kind of interpret it and see where we go from there. Greg?
I mean, with this question, even the previous one, which, if your unit has an advisory committee, or if you've included statistical analysis, feels like do we have any criteria in how we're gonna evaluate this? Because are we setting this up that if you don't have an advisory committee, if you don't have this other information, you're gonna lose points on how we look at it? I mean, it feels like it could be threatening. I mean, I don't know if we want these things, do we need to up front when we give base funding, say, you need to keep track. You need to have this information for reporting purposes. I mean, maybe that's a consideration. So it's more of an equal playing field.
Regardless of how it's worded, I think the intent behind this question is there's quite a few base funded areas that actually do have advisory groups as well already. Some of them are in capacity of programming needs and organizing, and some are set to where they do actually, review the budgets, and some review a single program budget, and some actually review an entire operational budget. So I think that question is really meant to not necessarily hinder the areas that might not have it, like Circuit County. We do not have an advisory committee in Circuit County because there are 4 people. And we have, 4 staff. It's just not, it doesn't fit that model, but there's other areas that do receive quite a bit of funding. And by, including those students that they have employed or in other ways appointed to those, I think it is impactful to see those answers and see how many areas might be doing stuff that we're not aware of.
Yeah, and there's hopefully in no shape or way or form that this comes off as aggressive in any way, or that they should feel threatened at all. It's more of just a questionnaire, kind of surveying where are we at with all our base fund areas, where are they collecting data, do they have it? It's not going to necessarily hinder them in funding in the future. I mean, granted, if they give us a funky response, it might arise some questions, but in no way it's going to, a point system, taking away funding or anything like that.
So it might be nice just within an instruction set before they have this, just saying why are we asking these questions? We're trying to gather data on what the current structure is across these areas and what sort of data you might already have or be in the works of getting, so that it is clear to everyone that this isn't oh shoot, I'm supposed to have an advisory committee. It's just no, we're trying to figure out what's already going on and what the structure looks like, what data already exists.
And maybe for that advisory committee, that is going to mean something for quite a few groups, but maybe we could put something in there as student involvement in some of those budgetary pieces or operational pieces. Because I know that there's other areas, we'll pick on campus activities who did the presentation. They'll include their students with actually, getting knowledge of what programming, what do students want, get that information out there. And I still think that that would be a great answer to have for that question as well, even if it's not as a quote advisory committee, but maybe a student involvement group.
Well, and with that, I think this, and this is part of where my question was coming from and going off of our previous is, I think the question of how do you assess the effectiveness of service activities you provide to students, is student input collected and used in this process? And almost as a separate, does your program have an advisory committee? If so, in what capacity is it involved in your budgeting process? There's 2 separate pieces within there.
So I think based off the conversation we're having, I think it'd be best if we just separated them. Those kind of questions.
The other 2 pieces I had were the very last 2 questions from the conversation, and I think both of them were stolen from Josh. Was really what is question 11 on here of changing that, or maybe it wasn't, that one was someone else who said the positive. Asking the question of what would be the impact to students if this program's funding were increased by, and I think I had 20%, but I put 15 here, but whatever percent, were increased by X percent, and what would be the impact to students if this program's funding were decreased by said percent? So again, it doesn't have the perception of someone looking at this of, oh, they're looking to cut funding. It's asking what would those impacts be. So reframing that question. And then the last one was reframing it in the, what are your program goals or learning objectives, and how are you assessing the effectiveness of your program in achieving those goals or objectives?
Eric?
Do we need to make a motion or recommendation to change these rules?
Well, and these aren't, Yeah.
Wrong word.
mostly to make sure the committee is in agreement that you are comfortable with us sending these questions out to get this feedback from the funding areas as part of the subcommittee.
Eric?
I would like to make a motion to approve these new questions, supplemental questions for, yeah. That's my motion.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Edgar seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion? Josh?
What's the intended timeline of collecting the responses?
And that was one we were talking about, is these will be sent out to base funding areas. Part of it was that we are not gonna have it sooner than we need to, and so it would be towards the end of January. So they're all doing their base funding annual reports right now. This is a supplemental set of questionnaires, but we don't need those because in reality, we're not gonna get a chance to look at these until after. And I know Lacey was looking at the first set of meetings, even when we would need it. So it would be mid to late January at the earliest that those would be put out.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, we need to look at the calendar and maybe make a solid date, but with the other responsibilities that these areas do have with fiscal 21 budgeting and base funding and all these, there's gonna be a lot of things to do in the next few weeks that does trickle into the first 2 weeks of January. So I was really looking at that last, few weeks, depending on how, what time we can get the questions sent out and an appropriate time that they can respond back to.
Eric?
I'd like to call the previous question.
Alright, so all those in favor of approving these questions? Opposed? Abstentions? So moved, thank you. We're just sending these out soon.
The one part I'll add with this is that these will also, we do have a third of our base funding groups who are going to be coming forward to do their program reviews. And so these will be some of the pieces, while they're going to submit this, that they will also verbally be presenting to share with you, so we have the chance to ask those groups questions on any of this information as they come in.
So my subcommittee report is finished, and now we're going to move on to other business communications received. Kind of received the same time you guys did, so yeah. Whoever wants to go first.
I can go first, friends.
Yeah.
So this is actually business from last year's committee, and I need, some clarification. So we had a funding request that was approved last year, and this is the actual request, and I'm just pulling up the actual dollar figure here. As you can see, they returned, we'll just say about $17,000 last year due to some timing things. And what this request really is, to try to summarize, is they requested for 2 quarters to fund student employment that is peer coaching is what they have identified. Now, this was approved. However, with the timing of certain things, the document that was submitted referenced winter of 2019 and spring of 2019. And so the requesters have only reimbursed spring of 19 due to some timing issues of getting all the employment scheduled and getting it approved by the approval processes that you guys are aware of. So the question that I have for the committee today is, they have expenses that have hit in fall of 2019. It's the same request, same intent, but it is slightly different than what is outlined in the request. So would the committee be in favor to still support within the same dollar figure? So of the $16,000 that they sent back, it would still fall in line with the total request, but it would be outside of the quarter that was listed in the actual request.
So to simplify, all the information was that it's moved from winter, spring to spring, fall. But because they were specific in their request of saying winter, spring, you all have to provide approval for them to be able to use the funds for this fall quarter since it got pushed back.
Great.
It's the same funds though, it's not taken out of this year's?
No.
So
It would not be taken out of this total at all.
Eric?
I'd like to make a motion to approve that change to the request.
Is there a second? Dane seconds, discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention, so moved. Carry it forward into their fall of 2019.
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. And is that your communications?
That was all that I had. Jay, you're gonna take it.
Joe?
The other communications?
The other one I received, Francesca already read it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So that was the other one I had.
Okay, yeah, we moved that to public comment.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think if you want me to read it.
Okay, so communications received done. Moving on to public comments, second call. Is there any public comment this time?
Thank you all for all the work this quarter. I know there've been a lot of meetings. I know the subcommittee is still wrapping things up. I know the motion we had is that any final pieces beyond the questionnaire would be kind of finalized by the 16th, 15th. I can't remember what the motion was, but coming up on there. So we'll have those when you all come back, but otherwise I hope you all have a great holidays after finals, which hopefully goes smooth for everyone in here next week. We'll see you back next year.
Lacey?
And as a piece for when we do see you back in January of next year, I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware that the deadline for the presentation for fiscal 21's budget presentation is actually scheduled for January 14th, I believe, so in January. So that really only gives us a total of one meeting to kind of go through some things, and I'm still in the process of seeing if I can get that extended to January 25th, but I just wanted to let you guys know that that is what the schedule is as of right now. And so we plan on setting up some presentations to review some of the base allocations and some of those things, but there might be kind of a quick turnaround on that, so I just kind of want to give you guys a heads up just in case we can't get that date pushed back to the following PPAC meeting.
Eric?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second? Motion? Martin seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Thank you. I adjourn the meeting at 7:25.